Admiral Taeho Kim stood on the bridge of the human dreadnought Indomitable and watched the enemy fleet approach. Through the massive viewing window he could see hundreds of alien ships moving in perfect formation. Their hulls gleamed with unknown metals and energy fields that bent light around them like water. The Galactic Confederation had ruled this part of space for over 3,000 years. They had conquered dozens of worlds and absorbed countless species into their empire. Their technology was ancient and powerful. Their weapons could destroy entire moons. Their shields could stop the blast from a dying star, but they had never faced humans before. "Sir, the alien fleet is hailing us," reported Captain Sora Park from her position at the communications station. Her fingers danced over the control panels with practiced ease. "They want to talk," Taeho nodded slowly. He had expected this. The Confederation always tried to negotiate first. They would offer humanity a place in their empire as a minor species. They would promise protection and technology in exchange for complete surrender. It was the same offer they had made to every other species they had encountered. "Put them through," Taeho said. The main screen flickered to life. A towering alien figure appeared, its skin a deep purple color and its eyes like burning coals. Multiple arms moved as it spoke, gesturing in patterns that seemed important to its kind. "I am General Vex Thule of the Hegemony Fleet," the alien said. Its voice was translated by the ship's computers, but the tone still carried arrogance and authority. "You will surrender your vessels and submit to Confederation rule." "This is your only warning," Taeho smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "General Vexthal," he replied, "I am Admiral Taeho Kim of the Human Defense Fleet. We decline your generous offer." The alien's eyes flared brighter. "You do not understand, primitive creature. We have studied your species. You have basic weapons and simple technology. Our smallest scout ship could destroy your entire fleet." "Perhaps," Taeho said. "But you have not studied us very well if you think we will surrender without a fight." He gestured to Captain Park. She nodded and cut the transmission. "All ships. This is Admiral Kim." Taeho spoke into his communicator. "You know what to do. Show them what humans are capable of." The response was immediate. The Indomitable opened fire first. Its main guns were kinetic accelerators that fired solid metal projectiles at incredible speeds. Each projectile was the size of a small building and moved fast enough to punch through 3 layers of the strongest shields known to science. The first alien ship to be hit simply vanished. One moment it was there, elegant and deadly. The next moment there was only empty space and a cloud of glowing debris. Captain Park's fighter wing launched next. Her ships were smaller and faster than anything the aliens had ever seen. They moved like angry insects, weaving between enemy fire and striking at weak points with surgical precision. Each fighter carried weapons that adapted to their targets, learning how to penetrate shields and armor with every shot. "Sir, their defensive formation is breaking apart," reported Lieutenant Bo-Ra Kim from the tactical station. "They expected us to fight like other species they have faced." Taeho watched the battle unfold on the tactical display. The alien ships were powerful, but they fought according to ancient rules and patterns. They expected their enemies to match them ship for ship in organized formations. They expected long, drawn-out battles where superior technology would eventually win. Humans did not fight that way. Commander Eugene Choi's engineering ships moved through the battlefield like ghosts. They were not warships, but they carried tools that could turn enemy technology against itself. As alien vessels fell behind their main fleet for repairs, Choi's teams would board them and steal their secrets. Within hours, human ships began using modified versions of alien weapons. The Confederation's feared plasma cannons were redesigned and improved by human engineers, who saw flaws that aliens had missed for centuries. "Sir, we are receiving reports from the surface of Kepler 442b, Captain Park announced. "The ground battle has begun," Taeho nodded. The border world was humanity's first major test against Confederation ground forces. If they could hold the planet, other species would take notice. If they failed, humanity would be seen as just another weak species to be absorbed. On the planet below, human soldiers were facing the Confederation's elite troops. The aliens had weapons that could phase matter out of existence and armor that could shrug off nuclear explosions. They had fought on 1,000 worlds and never lost a battle. But human soldiers had something the aliens did not expect. When their weapons failed, humans picked up rocks and threw them. When their equipment was destroyed, they built new weapons from broken pieces of alien technology. When they were outnumbered, they set traps and used the environment against their enemies. Dr. Hee-Wan Nam led a team of scientists who studied captured alien weapons in real time. While battles raged around them, she and her team would take apart enemy devices and figure out how they worked. Then they would build better versions. "The aliens are retreating from the northern continent," reported a voice from the planet. "They left behind their wounded and most of their equipment." Teho felt a grim satisfaction. The Confederation had never faced an enemy like this before. Other species fought with honor and followed rules. They accepted defeat when it was logical. They surrendered when resistance became impossible. Humans were different. "Sir, we are detecting more alien ships approaching," Lieutenant Kim announced. 3 full battle fleets coming from different directions. How many ships total?" Teho asked. "Over 2,000, sir. They outnumber us 50 to 1. The bridge fell silent. Even with their technological advantages, fighting such odds seemed impossible. Teho smiled again. This time it was the smile of a man who had been waiting his entire life for exactly this moment. "Signal all ships," he said. "Prepare for Phase 2. Across the human fleet, soldiers and officers received the message they had been training for. Phase 2 was not about winning through superior weapons or clever tactics. Phase 2 was about showing the galaxy something it had never seen before. It was about showing them what happened when humans decided that surrender was not an option. The real battle was about to begin. Ambassador Jae-Won Lee stood in the Grand Chamber of the Confederation Council and tried to look peaceful. Around him, representatives from dozens of alien species sat in floating chairs arranged in perfect circles. The chamber itself was carved from a single massive crystal that glowed with soft blue light. 3 days had passed since Admiral Kim's fleet had destroyed 2 Confederation battle groups. The aliens were no longer talking about easy conquest. Now they wanted to negotiate. "Honored Ambassador," said Chancellor Mordak, his voice echoing through translators that made him sound like distant thunder. The Chancellor was a member of the hegemony, the same species as General Vexthul. His purple skin was marked with golden symbols that showed his high rank. "We welcome humanity to this council of civilized species." Jae-Won smiled politely. He had studied the Confederation's history during the long journey to their capital world. Every species in this chamber had once been independent. Every species had once fought against Confederation rule. Every species had eventually surrendered and become part of the Empire. The Confederation believed this pattern would continue forever. "Thank you, Chancellor," Jae-Won replied. "We are honored to be here. Though I must point out that we have not agreed to join your Confederation." A ripple of sound passed through the chamber. It was the alien equivalent of nervous laughter. Many of the representatives had never heard a species speak to the Chancellor in such a way. "Of course," Chancellor Mordak said, his tone remaining calm. "We understand that humans value their independence. This is natural for a young species. But surely you can see the benefits of joining our great civilization. We offer protection, advanced technology, and membership in the galaxy's most powerful alliance." While the ambassador spoke with alien politicians, Commander Eugene Choi was deep underground in the Confederation's most secure research facility. Her engineering team had been invited to observe alien technology as part of the peace talks. The aliens thought this would impress humanity and make them more willing to surrender. They were wrong. Eugene stood before a massive device that the aliens called a reality disruptor. It was their most feared weapon, capable of making matter simply stop existing. The alien scientist explaining it was a tall, thin creature with too many eyes. "This weapon can phase entire cities out of existence," the scientist said proudly. "No shield can stop it. No armor can protect against it. It has never failed in over 1,000 years of use." Eugene nodded and asked questions that sounded innocent, but were actually gathering crucial information. How did the weapon target its victims? What kind of energy did it use? How long did it take to charge between shots? Back in the human base camp, Dr. Hye-Won Nam was working with pieces of alien technology that Eugene's team had secretly collected. Her laboratory was a collection of tents and portable equipment that looked primitive compared to alien facilities. But appearances could be deceiving. Dr. Nam had been studying alien technology for weeks now. She had discovered something that amazed her. For all their advanced science, the aliens had not improved their basic designs in thousands of years. They built weapons and ships the same way their ancestors had built them centuries ago. Humans were different. Humans improved everything they touched. Doctor, I think I have found something interesting, said her assistant, a young engineer named Kyung-Soo An. He was holding a device that had been taken from a damaged alien fighter. Dr. Nam examined the device carefully. It was a quantum processor, the kind of computer that made alien ships so fast and smart. But as she studied it, she realized it had a fundamental flaw. This is incredible, she whispered. Their computers are designed to work in predictable patterns. They cannot adapt to truly random behavior. This discovery would change everything. In the council chamber, the negotiations continued. Chancellor Mordak was becoming less patient and more direct with his offers. Ambassador Lee, he said, you must understand your position. Your fleet fought well, but it was only a small part of our forces. We have millions of ships. We control thousands of worlds. Your resistance, while impressive, cannot continue forever. Jaewon listened carefully to the translation. The Chancellor was telling the truth about the Confederation's size and power, but he was making the same mistake that General Vexthul had made before the first battle. He was thinking like an alien. Chancellor, Jaewon replied, you are correct that we are outnumbered, but you seem to think that numbers are the only thing that matters in war. What else could matter against such odds? Asked another representative, a creature that looked like a living crystal. Determination, Jaewon said simply. The aliens did not understand what he meant. To them, war was a calculation. You counted ships and weapons and technology. When one side was clearly superior, the other side surrendered. This was logical. This was civilized. Humans did not think this way. While the ambassador spoke, reports were coming in from battlefields across human space. Confederation forces had attacked 12 human colonies expecting easy victories. Instead, they found defenders who refused to follow the normal rules of war. On the mining world of New Seoul, human colonists had turned their industrial equipment into weapons. Mining explosives became missiles. Construction robots became fighting machines. When Confederation troops landed expecting to face a helpless civilian population, they found an entire world that had transformed itself into a fortress. On the research station orbiting Proxima Centauri, human scientists had used their own experiments to create impossible defenses. They had weapons that fired black holes the size of marbles. They had shields that turned enemy shots back at the attackers. Most disturbing to the aliens was what happened on the agricultural world of New Busan. The human farmers there had no weapons at all. When Confederation forces arrived, the humans simply vanished into the forests and mountains. For weeks, alien patrols found nothing but empty settlements. Then the attacks began. Humans would appear from nowhere, strike at supply convoys and communication posts, then disappear again. They used farm tools as weapons and turned the very land itself against the invaders. Alien soldiers began to fear the shadows and jump at every sound. The Confederation had faced guerrilla warfare before, but never like this. Other species eventually grew tired and gave up. Humans seemed to become more dangerous the longer they fought. Back in the council chamber, Chancellor Mordak was receiving these reports through private communications. His expression grew darker with each message. Ambassador Lee, he said finally, your people are not fighting like civilized beings. They are using tactics that violate the accepted rules of warfare. Jaewon smiled. Chancellor, I think you have misunderstood something important about humans. We did not agree to follow your rules. The chamber fell silent. This was something new in the Confederation's long history. They had encountered stubborn species before, but never one that simply refused to acknowledge the way war was supposed to work. What exactly are you saying, Ambassador? Chancellor Mordak asked. I am saying that we will fight this war our way, not yours. And our way means we do not stop fighting until we win. The real lesson was just beginning. Colonel Jinwoo Kang received the message while his unit was hiding in the ruins of what had once been Proxima Station. Around him, 200 of the toughest human soldiers ever trained waited in the darkness. They called themselves the Honey Badger Division, and they had earned that name through sheer stubbornness. Sir, we have new orders, said Sergeant Major Mi Young-song, crawling through the debris to reach him. Her uniform was torn and dirty, but her eyes were bright with determination. Command wants us to hold this station for 3 more weeks. Jinwoo looked around at the devastation. Proxima Station had been a beautiful place once, with gleaming corridors and observation decks that looked out at the stars. Now it was a maze of twisted metal and broken walls. The life support systems were failing. Food supplies were running low. And outside, 15,000 Confederation troops waited to finish them off. Any sane military commander would have ordered a retreat. Jinwoo smiled. "Tell the troops we are staying. This is our home now." The Honey Badger Division was not like other military units. They had not been chosen for their strength or their marksmanship or their knowledge of tactics. They had been selected for something much more dangerous to their enemies. They had been chosen because they did not know how to give up. Lieutenant Bora Kim was the perfect example. She was barely 5 feet tall and looked like she should be teaching children instead of fighting aliens. But 3 days earlier, she had done something that military historians would study for generations. A Confederation battle cruiser had been damaged in the fighting and had docked with the station for repairs. Bora had volunteered to sneak aboard and gather intelligence about enemy plans. Instead, she had convinced the ship's artificial intelligence that she was authorized maintenance personnel. The battlecruiser's AI was supposed to be unhackable. It had been designed by the finest alien minds and protected by quantum encryption that would take centuries to break. But Bora had not tried to hack it. She had simply talked to it. "Hello," she had said when she found the AI core. "I am here to perform routine maintenance." "You are not authorized," the AI had replied. "You are human." "Yes," Bora had agreed. "But the maintenance schedule shows that a human technician was supposed to check this system today." "Are you saying the schedule is wrong?" The AI had paused. Its programming told it that maintenance schedules were never wrong. But its programming also told it that humans were enemies. "Please show your authorization codes," the AI had requested. Bora had shown it a random series of numbers that she had copied from a food dispenser. The AI, unable to process this contradiction in its logical systems, had decided that the easiest solution was to believe her. She had spent 6 hours aboard the enemy ship, downloading their entire tactical database and planting computer viruses that would spread to other Confederation vessels. When she returned to the station, she had carried enough intelligence to change the course of the war. "How did you know that would work?" Jinwoo had asked her. "I did not know," Bora had replied, "but I knew it was worth trying." That was the difference between humans and other species. Other species calculated the odds of success before taking action. Humans took action and figured out how to succeed afterward. Captain Donghyun Park was discovering this truth in a different way. His squad had been cut off from the main force for 5 days. They were trapped in a section of the station with no food, no ammunition, and no way to communicate with their commanders. The Confederation troops hunting them were professional soldiers with advanced weapons and centuries of combat experience. They should have been able to capture or kill 5 humans in a matter of hours. Instead, Donghyun's squad had turned the hunt into a nightmare for their enemies. They had noticed something about alien military doctrine during their first encounter. Confederation soldiers relied heavily on their command structure. When officers gave orders, troops obeyed without question. When communication systems failed, entire units would become confused and defensive. Donghyun had decided to use this weakness against them. His squad began targeting communication equipment instead of soldiers. They would sneak into enemy positions, destroy radio transmitters, and disappear before anyone knew they had been there. Within hours, Confederation units throughout that section of the station had lost contact with their commanders. Some groups thought they were supposed to advance, others thought they were supposed to retreat. Several units ended up fighting each other by mistake. The psychological effect was devastating. Alien soldiers who had fought on dozens of worlds suddenly found themselves afraid of shadows and suspicious of every sound. Meanwhile, Major Eunji Choi was leading a different kind of mission. Her reconnaissance team had been ordered to capture enemy prisoners for interrogation, but when they studied the aliens they had taken, they discovered something unexpected. The prisoners were terrified, but not of being killed or tortured. They were afraid of something much worse. "What scares you most about fighting humans?" Eunji had asked one captured soldier. "You do not fight properly," the alien had replied through the translator. "You change tactics without warning. You use weapons in ways they were not designed to be used. You make plans that should not work but somehow do work." Dr. Sung Ho Yoon, the division's psychological warfare specialist, had analyzed hundreds of these interrogations. His conclusions were disturbing to the aliens and encouraging to humanity. They are afraid because we do not think like them, he explained to Jinwoo. Their entire civilization is based on patterns and rules that have remained the same for thousands of years. When they encounter something that does not follow those patterns, their minds cannot process it properly. This fear was spreading through the Confederation military like a disease. Reports came in from other battlefields where alien troops had retreated from positions they could have easily held. Commanders who had never lost a battle were requesting transfers to non-combat duties. The humans fighting at Proxima Station were becoming legends throughout the galaxy. Private Kyung-min An had survived 17 separate incidents that should have been fatal. He had been buried under debris, exposed to vacuum, poisoned by alien chemicals, and shot with weapons that could punch through starship armor. He kept fighting. Corporal Hanul Kim had earned the nickname the Ghostwalker by infiltrating secure alien facilities that were supposed to be impossible to enter. She would appear in enemy command centers, steal crucial information, and vanish before security systems even detected her presence. Word of these impossible achievements spread among both human and alien forces. Human soldiers began to believe they could overcome any obstacle. Alien soldiers began to believe that humans were supernatural beings who could not be stopped by normal means. As the third week of the siege began, Jinwoo received another message from command. Reinforcements were coming, but they would not arrive for several more days. Could the Honey Badger Division hold out a little longer? Jinwoo looked at his exhausted, outnumbered, impossible soldiers and knew the answer they would hold because giving up was not in their nature. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when unstoppable determination met immovable resistance. The unstoppable force always won. The reports flooding into Confederation Command made no sense. General Vexthal stood before a holographic display showing battle results from across the galaxy. Each red marker represented a defeat. Each yellow marker showed a strategic withdrawal. Green markers, which should have shown Confederation victories, were becoming increasingly rare. "This is impossible," muttered Commander Zalthek, his second in command. The insectoid aliens' wings buzzed with nervous energy. "We outnumber them 10 to 1 in every engagement. Our technology is superior. Our soldiers are better trained." Vexthal studied the data more carefully. The problem was not with individual battles. Confederation forces were still winning most direct confrontations. The problem was what happened after those victories. Humans did not stay defeated. On the mining world of New Kyoto, Confederation forces had destroyed the main human settlement and declared the planet conquered. 3 days later, human resistance fighters had emerged from underground tunnels and recaptured half the mining facilities. When alien reinforcements arrived to retake the mines, they found that humans had modified the mining equipment into weapons. Drilling machines now fired explosive charges. Transport vehicles had been armored and equipped with stolen alien guns. The humans had turned an entire planet into a weapon. Captain Dong Hyun Park's squad was still operating in the ruins of Proxima Station, and their tactics were becoming more creative every day. They had discovered that Confederation troops wore communication devices that could be overloaded with the right frequency of sound. Using improvised sonic weapons built from station equipment, Park's 5 soldiers could disable entire squads of enemies without firing a shot. The aliens would collapse, clutching their heads in pain, while their equipment sparked and failed. But it was not just the tactical victories that worried Confederation Command. It was the psychological reports coming back from the front lines. Dr. Seung-ho Yoon had been studying captured alien communications, and what he found disturbed him. Confederation soldiers were starting to believe that humans possessed supernatural abilities. "They think we can see the future," Yoon explained to Colonel Jin-Woo Kang during a brief communication window. "When our soldiers anticipate their tactics and respond before they finish their maneuvers, they assume we have psychic powers." The truth was simpler but more frightening to the aliens. Humans were learning to think like their enemies and then thinking one step beyond that. Major Yoon-ji Choi had made the most important discovery of the war during her latest intelligence mission. Her team had captured a Confederation command ship completely intact, along with its entire crew and computer systems. The intelligence they gathered painted a picture of an enemy that was far more vulnerable than anyone had realized. Their military doctrine has not changed in over 3,000 years, Yoon-ji reported to Admiral Kim. Every battle plan, every tactical manual, every strategic principle follows the same basic patterns their ancestors used. She showed him captured documents that revealed the depth of Confederation military thinking. They had detailed plans for conquering worlds, suppressing rebellions, and integrating new species into their empire. But all of these plans assumed that their enemies would fight according to established rules. What happened when those rules were ignored? The Confederation had no plans for that situation. Admiral Kim realized that humanity had stumbled upon the greatest weakness in galactic civilization. The aliens were so advanced, so successful, and so set in their ways that they could not adapt to truly unexpected challenges. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Bo-Ra Kim was proving this theory in the most direct way possible. She had volunteered for a mission that everyone agreed was suicide. She was going to infiltrate the Confederation's main fleet command center and steal their complete battle plans. The facility was located on an asteroid that had been hollowed out and converted into a fortress. It was protected by energy shields that could stop planet-killing weapons. It was guarded by the elite of the elite, soldiers who had never failed to stop an intruder. Bo-Ra walked through the front door. She had studied alien psychology for weeks, learning how different species thought and reacted. The guards at the entrance were members of a species that valued order and protocol above everything else. "I am here for the scheduled inspection," she told them in their own language, which she had learned from captured prisoners. "What inspection?" asked the senior guard, a towering creature covered in natural armor. Bo-Ra showed him a document she had created using alien computers from the captured command ship. It looked official and bore the proper seals and authorization codes. "The quarterly security review," she said confidently. "I am surprised you were not informed. This suggests a serious breakdown in communication protocols." The guards looked at each other nervously. A breakdown in communication protocols was exactly the kind of thing that could end their careers. Rather than risk being blamed for not knowing about an inspection, they decided to let her pass and check with their superiors later. Bo-Ra spent 6 hours in the most secure facility in Confederation space. She downloaded fleet positions, tactical assessments, and strategic plans covering the next 2 years of the war. When she finally left, she thanked the guards for their cooperation and suggested they might want to review their communication procedures. The intelligence she brought back revealed that the Confederation was planning a massive offensive designed to end human resistance once and for all. They were gathering the largest fleet in galactic history, over 10,000 ships from dozens of different species. But the captured plans also revealed something else. The Confederation High Command was becoming desperate. Reports from the front lines were creating panic among political leaders who had never experienced serious military resistance. Some species were beginning to question whether the war was worth fighting. Others were quietly reducing their military contributions and preparing to negotiate separate peace agreements with humanity. Dr. Hee-Won Nam had been working around the clock to analyze captured alien technology, and her latest breakthrough would change the balance of power completely. "I have figured out how their reality disruptors work," she announced to a gathering of human military leaders. "And more importantly, I know how to build better ones." The alien weapons that could phase matter out of existence relied on quantum field manipulation. The technology was incredibly advanced, but it had been designed by species that thought in linear, predictable patterns. Human scientists thought differently. They saw possibilities that aliens had never considered. "We can make portable versions," Nam explained. "Individual soldiers could carry weapons that make their reality disruptors look like toys." But the real breakthrough was not in building better weapons. It was in understanding why alien technology had remained unchanged for so long. They are afraid of innovation, Nam realized. Their civilization is so complex and interconnected that any major change could destabilize everything. So they stick with what they know works even when better alternatives exist. Humans had no such fear. Human civilization thrived on change and improvement. Where aliens saw dangerous uncertainty, humans saw opportunity. As news of these discoveries spread through human space, morale reached levels that surprised even military commanders. Soldiers who had been facing impossible odds suddenly realized that those odds were not as impossible as they seemed. The psychological effect rippled outward to civilian populations. Humans who had been afraid of alien conquest began to believe that victory was possible. This confidence became a weapon in itself. Human forces began taking risks that should have been suicidal but somehow worked. They attacked superior forces and won. They held positions that should have been impossible to defend. Most importantly, they stopped thinking of the Confederation as an unstoppable empire and started thinking of it as just another enemy that could be defeated. The aliens noticed this change immediately. Their intelligence reports described a transformation in human behavior that made no sense according to their understanding of military psychology. They are fighting as if they believe they cannot lose. One report stated, "This is not rational behavior for a species facing such overwhelming odds." But rationality had never been humanity's greatest strength. As the fourth phase of the war began, both sides prepared for battles that would determine the fate of the galaxy. The Confederation gathered its greatest fleet and most experienced commanders for what they believed would be the final campaign. Humanity prepared to show them that the impossible was just another word for something they had not accomplished yet. The Battle of the Nexus Gates would be remembered as the moment when the impossible became inevitable. Colonel Jin Woo Kang stood on the bridge of the converted cargo hauler Defiance and watched 400 Confederation ships approach through the wormhole network. His own force consisted of 12 human combat vessels and a handful of ships that had been civilian transports just weeks before. The odds were worse than hopeless. They were mathematically absurd. Jin Woo smiled. "All ships, this is Colonel Kang." He spoke into his communicator. "Remember what we learned at Proxima Station? The enemy expects us to fight like reasonable people, so let us be completely unreasonable. The Nexus Gates were the most important strategic location in this part of the galaxy. 6 different wormhole routes converged here, allowing instant travel between distant star systems. Whoever controlled the gates controlled trade, communication, and military movement across dozens of worlds. The Confederation had held the gates for over 1,000 years. They considered it impossible for any enemy to take such a well-defended position. They were about to learn that humans specialized in doing impossible things. Commander Subin Lee was in charge of the technical aspects of the battle plan. Her engineering team had spent weeks studying the wormhole network, learning how the gates functioned and what might happen if those functions were disrupted. "Sir, we have finished reprogramming the captured alien drones," she reported. "They are ready to begin broadcasting false sensor readings on your command." The plan was insane even by human standards. Instead of fighting the Confederation fleet directly, they were going to convince the aliens that humans had developed impossible technologies. It started with the drones. Hundreds of small alien robots had been captured during previous battles and reprogrammed with human software. Now they began transmitting sensor data that made it look like human ships could teleport instantly from one location to another. The effect on the Confederation fleet was immediate and devastating. "Sir, enemy vessels are appearing and disappearing at random," reported the tactical officer aboard the flagship Eternal for Victory. "They seem to be moving faster than light without using wormhole technology." Admiral Kethvar, the Confederation's most experienced fleet commander, studied the sensor readings with growing confusion. The data made no sense. Ships could not simply vanish from one location and reappear in another without some kind of transportation method. But that was exactly what the sensors showed happening. What Admiral Kethvar did not know was that the human ships had never moved at all. The false sensor readings were creating illusions that made single vessels appear to be entire fleets, spreading across multiple locations simultaneously. Captain Dong-hyun Park was piloting one of the teleporting human ships. In reality, he was sitting perfectly still behind a large asteroid. But Confederation sensors showed his fighter attacking 3 different enemy formations at the same time. "This is incredible," he reported to Colonel Kang. "The enemy fleet is breaking formation to chase targets that do not exist. Half their ships are firing at empty space." The psychological warfare was working better than anyone had dared hope. Confederation forces were designed to fight enemies that followed the laws of physics. When faced with opponents who seemed to ignore those laws completely, their tactical system simply could not cope. But the real masterstroke was yet to come. Lieutenant Bo-Ra Kim had discovered something fascinating about the wormhole network during her studies of captured alien technology. The gates were not just transportation devices. They were also incredibly sophisticated computers that calculated safe routes through space-time. And like all alien technology, they had not been improved or updated in centuries. "Colonel, we are ready to implement Phase 2, she reported from her position aboard the command ship. Phase 2 involved something that no military commander in galactic history had ever attempted. They were going to turn the wormhole network itself into a weapon. Using modified alien computer viruses, Bora began introducing chaos into the gate control systems. But she was not trying to destroy them. Instead, she was making them behave in ways that would terrify the enemy while helping human forces. The first sign that something was wrong came when a Confederation battle group tried to retreat through wormhole route 7. Instead of emerging in friendly space, they found themselves in the middle of an asteroid field on the other side of the galaxy. The second battle group to attempt retreat ended up inside a star. Within minutes, reports were flooding into Confederation command that the wormhole network had become completely unpredictable. Ships that entered one gate might emerge from any of the other 5 gates in the system, or they might not emerge at all. From the aliens' perspective, humans had somehow gained control of technology that had been considered absolutely secure for millennia. The panic was immediate and complete. "Sir, we are receiving surrender requests from 17 enemy ships," reported Commander Lee from her technical station. "They are asking for safe passage out of the system." Colonel Kang considered this development. The battle had been raging for only 3 hours, and already a significant portion of the enemy fleet was trying to surrender. But the most remarkable report came from Private Kyung-min An, who had earned his reputation for surviving impossible situations. An had volunteered to board a disabled Confederation command ship to gather intelligence. What he found there changed everything about how humans understood their enemy. "Sir, you need to hear this," he reported through his communicator. "The alien crew is not trying to fight me. They are hiding." An had expected to face desperate resistance from the ship's complement of elite soldiers. Instead, he found them barricaded in their quarters, refusing to come out. "They keep saying that fighting humans is suicide," he continued. "They believe we are some kind of supernatural beings that cannot be killed." This revelation spread quickly through human forces. The legendary invincibility of Confederation troops was largely psychological. When that psychology was broken, they became just another group of frightened soldiers far from home. Dr. Sung Ho-yoon had been monitoring alien communications throughout the battle. What he heard confirmed humanity's growing advantage. "They are calling us demons," he reported to Colonel Kang. Their word translates roughly to beings that make reality bend to their will. "They think we have transcended the normal limits of physical existence." The truth was simpler but no less powerful. Humans had learned to fight in ways that aliens could not predict or counter. When conventional tactics failed, humans invented new ones. When normal weapons were ineffective, humans built impossible weapons. Most importantly, when victory seemed impossible, humans redefined what impossible meant. As the battle continued, the psychological pressure on Confederation forces became unbearable. Entire ship crews were reporting stress breakdowns. Commanders who had never lost a battle were requesting immediate evacuation. The final blow came when Corporal Han-yul Kim, the Ghost Walker, appeared on the bridge of the enemy flagship. Admiral Kethvar looked up from his tactical display to find a small human woman standing next to his command chair. She should not have been able to reach his ship, much less board it without detection. "How did you get here?" he asked in his own language. Han-yul smiled and answered in perfect Confederation standard. "I walked through your shields like they were not there. Would you like me to show your crew how I did it?" The admiral looked around his bridge and realized that his most secure defenses had been penetrated by a single human soldier who had somehow learned their language and customs, well enough to move among them undetected. "What do you want?" he asked. "I want you to surrender," Han-yul replied simply. "Your fleet is trapped in a system where the wormholes no longer obey your commands. Your weapons cannot target enemies that exist in multiple places simultaneously. Your soldiers are afraid to leave their ships." She paused and looked directly into his eyes. "You have 2 choices. You can surrender now and return home safely, or you can continue fighting and discover what other impossible things humans can do when we get creative." Admiral Kethvar looked at his tactical display one more time. Of his 400 ships, over half were requesting permission to retreat. The remainder were scattered throughout the system. chasing phantom targets and firing at empty space. The humans, meanwhile, appeared to be everywhere at once while somehow still being nowhere he could strike back at them. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Kethvar faced an enemy that he simply could not understand or defeat. He reached for his communicator and did something that no Confederation fleet commander had done in over 2,000 years. He surrendered to a force that was outnumbered 30-1. The message arrived at Confederation Command 3 days after the Battle of the Nexus Gates. "This is Admiral Kethvar of the 4th Expeditionary Fleet," the recording began. The alien's voice carried a weight that had never been heard in official Confederation communications before. It was the sound of complete defeat. "I am requesting immediate reassignment to non-combat duties. I cannot recommend any military action against human forces." Chancellor Mordak played the message for the 7th time, still unable to believe what he was hearing. Admiral Kethvar had been the Confederation's most successful military commander. He had conquered 18-star systems and never lost a single battle in 40 years of service. Now he was asking to be removed from active duty because he was afraid of humans. What exactly happened at the Nexus Gates? The Chancellor asked General Vextol. The general's report was brief but devastating. A force of 12 human ships had defeated 400 Confederation vessels without destroying a single enemy craft. Instead, they had convinced the entire fleet that continued resistance was hopeless. "How is this possible?" demanded Counselor Zeftai, a representative of the crystalline species that prided itself on logical thinking. "Our forces had overwhelming numerical and technological superiority." Vexthal looked uncomfortable. "The humans did not fight according to any recognizable military doctrine. They convinced our sensors that their ships could teleport. They took control of the wormhole network and used it as a weapon. Most disturbing of all, they demonstrated that our security systems cannot keep out individual human soldiers. The psychological reports were even worse. Confederation troops throughout the galaxy were refusing combat assignments against human forces. Military recruitment had dropped by 60% in the past month. Some species were quietly withdrawing their fleets and returning to their home systems. The Confederation, which had ruled through military strength for 3,000 years, was discovering that strength meant nothing against an enemy that could not be intimidated. On the human side, Admiral Tae-Ho Kim was receiving very different reports. "Sir, we are getting surrender requests from Confederation forces in 17 different star systems," Captain Sora Park announced from her position at the communication station. "Many of them are offering to provide intelligence about remaining enemy positions." Kim studied the tactical display showing human-controlled space. In 6 months, humanity had gone from defending a handful of colonies to controlling a significant portion of what had once been Confederation territory. But more importantly, they had broken something fundamental in the alien command structure. Colonel Jinwoo Kang's report from the Nexus Gates explained what had happened. The Honey Badger Division had not just won a battle. They had created a legend that was spreading through alien military ranks faster than official communications. "They call us the Inevitable Ones," Kang reported during his debriefing. Their word translates roughly to forces that cannot be stopped by normal means. Confederation soldiers now believe that fighting humans is impossible. This belief was becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. When alien forces encountered human units, they expected to lose. When they expected to lose, they fought half-heartedly or retreated without engaging. Dr. Hyawan Nam had been studying captured alien psychology reports, and her analysis revealed the depth of Confederation psychological collapse. Their entire civilization is based on the idea that superior technology guarantees victory, she explained to the human command staff. When we demonstrated that technology alone is not enough, we destroyed their fundamental understanding of how war works. The aliens had built their empire by convincing other species that resistance was futile. Now humans had convinced them that their own resistance was futile. But the final surrender came from an unexpected source. Ambassador Jae-won. Lee received a personal communication from Chancellor Mordak requesting immediate peace negotiations. The message was transmitted on emergency diplomatic channels and carried the highest priority codes. Ambassador Lee, the Chancellor's translation began, "The Confederation Council wishes to formally request an end to hostilities between our civilizations. We are prepared to offer significant territorial concessions and technology transfers in exchange for a cessation of human military operations. Lee read the message twice before calling Admiral Kim. "Sir, I believe they are offering to surrender," he said simply. The formal surrender ceremony took place aboard the human dreadnought Indomitable, the same ship where the war had begun. Chancellor Mordak arrived with a delegation of alien officials who looked like they were attending their own funeral. Admiral Kim watched as the most powerful empire in the galaxy officially acknowledged defeat to a species they had vastly outnumbered and outgunned. "We do not understand how you achieved victory," Chancellor Mordak said during the ceremony. "Our analysis suggests that such an outcome should have been mathematically impossible." Kim smiled. "Chancellor, you made the same mistake that General Vexthal made at the beginning of this war. You assumed that mathematics could predict human behavior. The peace treaty was surprisingly brief. The Confederation would recognize human independence and withdraw all military forces from human space. In exchange, humans would cease all offensive operations and allow Confederation civilians safe passage through human territory. There were no demands for tribute or territorial concessions. Humanity had not fought this war to build an empire. They had fought it to prove that building an empire by conquest was not inevitable. After the ceremony, Colonel Kang addressed the Honey Badger Division one final time. His 200 soldiers had become the most feared military unit in galactic history. "They called us impossible," he told them. "They were right. We made the impossible possible by refusing to accept that it was impossible in the first place." Private Kyungmin An, who had survived 19 separate incidents that should have been fatal, raised his hand. "Sir, what do we do now that the war is over?" Kang smiled. "Now we get ready for the next impossible thing." The psychological impact of the war continued long after the formal surrender. Throughout Confederation space, military academies began studying human tactics and trying to understand how such adaptive creativity was possible. Their conclusion was disturbing to the established order. "Humans do not fight to win," wrote Dr. Nam in her post-war analysis. "They fight to prove that winning was always possible, even when everyone else believed it was not." This attitude spread to other species within the Confederation. Some began to question whether their own defeat at human hands had been truly inevitable. Others started experimenting with the kind of creative thinking that had made human victory possible. The galaxy would never be the same. Years later, when historians tried to understand how humanity had achieved the impossible, they focused on weapons technology and tactical innovation. But the real answer was simpler and more profound. Humans had won because they had never learned how to lose. When faced with overwhelming odds, they had not calculated their chances of survival. They had calculated how to make survival possible. When confronted with superior technology, they had not accepted defeat. They had figured out how to make their own technology superior. When told that their goals were impossible, they had not changed their goals. They had changed what impossible meant. The Confederation had ruled the galaxy by convincing other species that resistance was futile. But they had never encountered a species that considered futility to be just another obstacle to overcome. In the end, humanity's greatest weapon had not been their kinetic accelerators or their adaptive AI systems or their reality-bending technology. Their greatest weapon had been their absolute refusal to believe that any problem could not be solved. The galaxy had learned a new lesson about the nature of power. Sometimes, the most dangerous enemy is not the one with the biggest guns or the fastest ships or the most advanced technology. Sometimes, the most dangerous enemy is the one who simply will not stop fighting until they win. And humans, as the Confederation discovered too late, never knew when to stop.